You're listening to the Popoto Pub Final Fantasy XIV podcast with your host, Popo Jagaimo.
All right, well, lolly ho, everybody. Welcome back to the third episode of the Popoto Pub Final Fantasy XIV podcast. Thank you all for tuning in once again to listen. And if you're joining us for the first time, thank you for stopping by. I'm here today with one of my best friends on the planet and a longtime partner of mine in this content creator space, Jae Shadeaux. So, Jae, care to introduce yourself to the crowd?
Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm a Final Fantasy XIV conjurer, former WoW player since vanilla, and former WoW podcaster, content creator, blogger, all sorts of good stuff. Had a good run over there, but loving the time in Final Fantasy now.
So, long time ago, Jay and I were Warcraft podcasters. We had, I would say, a relatively decent following, not a huge one, but a relatively decent following, and just enjoyed talking about Warcraft in the game a whole lot. It was just a blast to be able to create something that people enjoyed listening to and talking about different things. And, you know, we have not podcasted over there for quite a long time. Do you remember how long it's been?
Oh my goodness. Since we did that, it has, oh geez, has to have been, I don't even know now. It's been a long time.
For lack of a better term, we're old men, and
yeah, we got old over. You know, we were ahead of our time in podcasting. I think podcasting has changed a lot since we were doing it, and yeah, it's been some time. We got old.
Yeah, it's been fun to see podcasting grow so much in the past. You know, I would say, I don't know, 5 years. Like, it's been a real big explosion, 5 to 10 years, something
Definitely.
like that. And we predate all of that. So it's been fun to see, because, you know, it was a medium that I think both you and I really enjoyed participating in. And, you know, now of course we've got YouTube, and Peebs on the last episode was trying to get me into TikTok. I think I'm too old for that one. Are you on TikTok?
I'm too old for TikTok. I can't commit the time requirement dedicated to TikTok. From what I know of TikTok, you got to put in some hours to really watch a lot of content, and I can't do it. I can't commit.
Yeah. It's I don't think it's for my demo, to say the to say the least, on TikTok.
Right.
But, you know, I do appreciate the medium, and I it's interesting because, you know, all that we've seen is just there's just more access to be able to create cool stuff for people, and that's been a really fun thing to see.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, from what I've been told, I mean, over on TikTok, there's everything, and the algorithm will show you everything you love. So, you know, people can create. You know, if we were 10 years younger, maybe we'd have been on TikTok doing little WoW memes and going crazy over there too. Who knows what would have happened? But yeah,
Yeah, we made a few WoW memes back in the day. They didn't get big,
We
you know.
did.
They didn't get big, so, like some of the memes that I've made recently on the channel and everything. But, you know, we had fun with it. We did some stuff with Murlocs. I remember back in the day, a little skit we did with Murlocs and other things. It was
right. We had skits. Skits are
Yeah.
fun. Yep.
It was good times, and you know, I think both of us have been out of the. We've tried some different podcasts and stuff over time, done different things in different areas. They've all kind of just fell by the wayside because life got in the way and everything else. But, you know, it's been, I want to say, at least 6 or 7 years since I've personally done any podcasting, and it's been really, really enjoyable to get back into it.
Yeah, I think it might have been 10 years since we WoW podcasted.
Yeah,
I think 10 years may have gone by.
that's scary, right? How quickly and how much time goes by, you know, in
Right.
such a short amount of time. So, you know, a lot's happened in the last 10 years in terms of the gaming space, in terms of Warcraft, in terms of a lot of different things. And we find ourselves in this funny time now of thinking about how there's been a mass exodus in World of Warcraft, how the player base, I really want to say, yes, it's happened since the summer for sure with the lawsuits and everything. But I've seen a trend of people just mass downvoting pretty much everything Blizzard puts out there, especially Warcraft. Probably for the last 2 years, it's really been just a lot of downvoting on stuff and review bombing and other. I don't even say review bombing because that seems like it's fake. I think it's legitimate grievances, but I think that it might be a little overstated because it's fun to get on a dislike train. But wanted to talk to you about, your history playing Warcraft, and then, why you kind of fell out of playing the game, what your more recent experiences with Warcraft may have been, and then, talk about that transition to Final Fantasy XIV and what you like about it, what you don't like about it, the things that you miss from Warcraft, the things that you think Warcraft should have copied Final Fantasy XIV on earlier. So let's trace it back to your history and
definitely
talk about why you got into Warcraft or MMOs in the first place. Maybe there was an MMO before Warcraft. I don't know. I actually don't know. Maybe there's an MMO before Warcraft that you got into, and let's just talk that MMO journey to Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah, I don't think there really wasn't a true MMO for me for World of Warcraft. I'm trying to really think gaming wise. No, there really nothing to that extent for me. It was, I think, for just like it was for everyone when it came out, it was, for some reason, it was this perfect storm. It was what we all needed at the time. It was the game that we all needed and didn't know we needed, and when we found it, we were instantly in love. And so when I didn't start right away when it came out, like not at launch. It was still midway through the release of Vanilla WoW, but I can probably still get goosebumps thinking about being a Tauren shaman at level, 5 and just running around and thinking this is the most amazing world I've ever seen. And I think there was just a period of time, right, where we were all just experiencing something amazing for the first time. And I think at the time, something I've thought about a lot recently, Blizzard was telling stories for the love of telling stories back then. And I think that passion was evident in what they were doing. They took all of their favorite elements from RPGs, from fantasy. They didn't invent orcs and humans. We had orcs going back to the Lord of the Rings and probably who knows what else. They made it awesome for us, and their love of storytelling really came through. And it's just kind of sad that I think the love of story and the love of gaming that fueled them in the beginning felt like everything became just forced, and everything sort of started to feel like it almost felt like it was a chore for them and a chore for us by the end for me. So that's kind of where the struggle is,
So you think is it just the story, or is it the world building? Is it just that you fatigued out in terms of just seeing the same kind of tropes, appear over and over again? Like, was there a breaking point for you, or was there an inflection point for when you started to feel differently about, I was smiling, ear to ear when you're talking about like that feeling of the first time you walk into Mulgore or Elwyn Forest or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got that, like this, I can't believe I'm standing in this world that you may have played the RTS from or something like that. When did it start to change? Like, what expansion did that love and that wonder start to dip and kind of wane for you?
It was probably, I'm trying to think of the actual expansion names, but it was definitely after Cataclysm. And then over the last couple expansions, there have been moments that have been really great, but there is also, I think, there's that redundancy, that repetitiveness of gameplay for me, and that's one of those things where you have to wonder, like, how long can a game like World of Warcraft sustain itself gameplay wise before players who've been playing it since the beginning, like we have, start to say, I've done this for 15 years, can I keep doing the same thing over and over again? And how can you get enough new players into the game who haven't experienced it, aren't playing games on their phone, other PC games or, other console games, and get them into World of Warcraft this late, It's like once the gameplay mechanics just start to wear you out after so many years, I think it's hard for anybody to stay in that long. I would let my subscription sort of run out, then I would jump back in and play for a while, then I would stop playing for a year, and then I would play for a bit, and I would be having fun when I got back into it, but then that repetitiveness, that okay, I'm back at that place that I've been doing this for so many years that I just need something new in my life. I just need to feel something different for a change, because the honeymoon wore off. That early excitement was gone. We can't get that back. We try, but you can't ever get that feeling back again. So as much as we want to, it just starts to I think it just starts to wear you out with redundant gameplay almost. Regardless of new zones, new mobs, new NPCs, new quests. Yeah, that's all cool. We're gonna throw some new mechanics in there to try and freshen it up. But at the end of the day, it's still the same game that it's always been. And once you've played it for so long, I think you eventually have to physically get worn out by it.
So is it like the rat race for gearing and running through dungeons and leveling through the content and doing a raid, even though they might be different? It's just that loop is relatively repetitive.
Yeah, the daily quests, the gear grinds. It just becomes a job that isn't as fun as it used to be. It's like, you say for some people where they might have the greatest job, and they're like, oh, it doesn't even feel like work. And that's how the game was at the beginning. I could just sit for hours grinding out the most mundane things and love every second of it. But 15 years later, you're thinking to yourself, or however many years it's been now, I don't even know. It's probably been like 17 years since the game came out. Um, it's just not fun anymore. It's just not there's just not that excitement. There's not that adrenaline that makes it interesting. It's now, why am I doing this again? What am I doing this for? I'm not raiding anymore. Don't have the same time commitment. My life has changed. It's like we evolve as people as the game is evolving, and it's almost like we're all kind of maybe evolving in two different directions, and our paths can't ever stay in the same direction, and we're always going to diverge a little bit, because who we are as people for a game that has been out as long as it's been out. Our time commitments change. What we want out of our entertainment has changed. What's available out in the world has changed. So content has changed. So it's hard to stick with it for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah. I mean, I when you said content, that got me thinking too. I mean, back in 12 years ago, something like that, when we were doing this for Warcraft, just thinking about the different types of content that we had access to in our homes, right? Like,
Right.
I think Steam was around, but like there wasn't much digital game purchasing, I don't feel like. So being able to just buy a game at home when you're sitting in front of your computer wasn't as common. And then thinking about even like television and movies and stuff like that, like Netflix was still delivering DVDs at that point in time through the physical mail. And you're right, there's just a lot of additional content that people have access to even beyond the gaming space that's just there and ready for them. And so yeah, maybe there's just more pressure for, competition within the gaming space, but then also in just the entertainment space at large.
Yeah, there definitely is. So then how does a company like Blizzard compete with all of that? They're not just competing with games anymore. They're competing with everything. So, they have to listen to shareholders. They have to listen to their hardcore players. They have to listen to their casual players. And that's where they've always, I think, sort of struggled. Back when Cataclysm came out, they made the game harder for everyone, and we saw people just giving up and saying we can't raid, it's too hard, we can't do, casual players suffered, so then they try and overcorrect one way and then they overcorrect another way, and they're always trying to figure out what do people want, how can we please people, and you can't please everyone, and so they get caught up in that sort of people pleasing of which demographic do we want to appeal to the most. So that's sort of where I see another problem that they had this whole time that I think only gets worse and only becomes more pressure put on them as the years go on with all these different types of content and entertainment forms.
So when was the last time that you played World of Warcraft?
Ooh, let's see. The last time I played was probably around the last BlizzCon, 2019, maybe
Yeah.
2019 was the last time I played. I don't think I played at all in 2020, and I haven't played at all in 2021. So I think 2019 was the last time I played.
So you didn't even mess with Shadowlands then?
No, I never. This is the first expansion that I have not played.
Wow.
Isn't it's insane to me.
Yeah. Well, I would hate to say you're not missing much. If you don't want the rat race, it's just more of the rat race, and that's why right. I phased out and started trying different things and finally found Final Fantasy and everything. The law.
I couldn't even bring myself to play it. I had reached a point where the thought of playing it just felt exhausting. I couldn't bring myself to even play it, which is sad. I mean, I think maybe that is the end for me. I may be saying it out loud that may be the official end. The fact that I couldn't even bring myself to play Shadowlands, even though when we were at BlizzCon, it looked great. It looked fun. We were caught up in all the excitement of the panels and hearing about the game. And yeah, man, this is gonna be the best. But when the time actually came, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it was a nice cap on an era for I think both of us, right? I continued to play, but as time rolled on, I just kept not wanting to play Shadowlands, and I would take long breaks, and then I would come back, and I remember I came back one day during the summer after taking a bit of a break, and I logged in for 5 minutes and said, I just don't want to do this anymore. It was just like that. And that was 2 weeks before the lawsuit. And when that happened, it was like, okay, now I'm really not playing. Now I'm really not going to do anything there. But it's funny how it kind of all just happened suddenly, that 16 years of your life just kind of just, I don't say of your life. There's so much more to life than Warcraft or MMOs, but a good part of your life, for the longest time just evaporates, it feels like, and it's there, but you don't look at it the same way. And it was almost like a switch for me. And that was a painful and difficult process, I think, to go through, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's an important part of your life. It really is. I mean, it's a strange thing to say that it's a video game, but at the same time, you think of the hours that were put into it, the friendships that are formed, all the people that we played with and raided with and got to know through podcasting. I mean, you build, there's a life that gets built around a video game, around content, around fandom. And when that sort of fades out, it's definitely sad.
Yeah. I mean, but I think back on all the memories. There are people, obviously you and I are still friends to this day, and that's been a wonderful thing. I still, keep in contact with some of the people that we raided with back in Wrath of the Lich King, just very sparingly, but when we do, it's like I would love to catch up with any of them, the people that we met while we were podcasting, the friends that I've made like after our guild kind of fell apart, and then the group of people that I've basically been with since Cataclysm, they've been with me through everything, and I've moved around a lot the country and over the last 10-12 years, and I've had friends, in person, like real life IRL friends in everywhere that I've gone. But the one thing that stayed constant was the people that I played games with, the people that I played Warcraft with. And they, all of you, I said they, but all of you have got me through a lot. And they've been that source of constant friendship and adventuring and fun and everything else and growth. We've all grown old together, and that's been a magical thing. And I can't thank, I think, Warcraft and Blizzard and everyone enough for giving us the vehicle for creating those memories. But really, at the end of the day, for me, it's I think I keep telling myself it was more about the people than it was the game.
Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, and it's sad. I mean, Blizzard games for the longest time had been my favorite games. I mean, Blizzard just seemed like the greatest company alive. I think that's kind of why the lawsuit part is just heartbreaking for some of us, where we idolized Blizzard. We idolized the people there. I wanted to work there. I wanted to be these people. There was just so much idol worship and so much love for a brand, for a company. And then to kind of almost have the rug pulled out from under you, it breaks your heart a little bit. It makes you think, well, why did I love them? What was it? And it goes back to, I think, they told really good stories, and they created worlds that were engaging to us. That we loved the characters, we loved the stories, and it made us just want to consume everything they put out, and that's kind of the way it went.
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned this before. Like, I idolized Chris Metzen, and it's weird to say that in the past tense now, because I just, unfortunately, I mean, he wasn't directly named in anything, but he was seemingly chums with Alex Afrasiabi, and Alex Afrasiabi was one of the main people named in a lot of the more horrific things that were going on at Blizzard through the lawsuit. And it's one of those situations where it's like, how could you not know? Yeah, it may have just been a blind eye, or it may just have been, oh, well, we'll just ignore that or not think about it. But if you see something, I just feel like you should do something. And I know, that's maybe easy to say from the outside, but it's hard for me to even look back at kind of how I idolized Chris Metzen, because that's who I wanted to be, and now to kind of look back on it with different eyes, it's kind of like, you weren't the person, at least I don't think you were the person that I thought you were. And that is a tough pill to swallow. And it's something I have to kind of keep myself grounded on too, because it's almost like, at least for me, I don't know if this is this way for you, because I don't think you're as into FF right now as I am, but it's almost like I look at Yoshi P like the new Chris Metzen. I'm almost idolizing that man, and I have to keep telling myself, don't do the hero worship thing again. But the thing I keep seeing from Yoshi P, I think that's a little bit different, is there is obvious humility on display there constantly. And I think that's what makes it feel different. And I think Chris Metzen was always self-deprecating and had always poked fun at himself and everything, but the humility was still very different in terms of how it was displayed, just, even cultural differences and everything. And that's why I feel so attached to Yoshi P now, because it's just very different from a lot of the other developers. Like, I idolize Chris Metzen, but then at the same hand, like, I really disliked Ghostcrawler back in the Wrath days, because he was always very condescending. And I haven't seen a single Final Fantasy XIV developer or person, at their company be condescending to people. And that's something I think has been really refreshing for me. But do you know much about Yoshi P? Does that impact you in your decision making at all when you're thinking about FF and how you feel about that now? Or is that just like way too deep into the Final Fantasy fandom for a new player?
I think you're definitely deeper in it than I am there. All the things that I've heard you talk about with them, and with the company sounds great. But yeah, I don't know too much. I haven't gotten that deep into it. personally yet, but maybe who knows? One day, maybe I will be. Maybe we'll be at Final Fantasy Con, and I'll be cosplaying.
FanFest is what it's called.
Yeah, there you go, FanFest. See,
so
who knows?
let's talk about the transition to Final Fantasy 14. So thanks for those Final Fantasy fans who've been listening to another kind of WoW refugee journey, but those are the people that I know. So these are the guests that I'm getting on the podcast right now. But I'm sure over time we'll continue to, I don't want to say phase out the Warcraft content, but there will be probably less talk about Warcraft in the future. But I want to talk about kind of your journey into Final Fantasy 14. Like, first off, why you picked it up, and then your kind of early impressions as a new player. Were they good? Were they bad? What did you think when you first set foot in Eorzea?
So I picked it up because you kept hounding me to pick it up. And that's the truth, people. No, actually, it is kind of the truth. I was reluctant to get into another MMO. Honestly, I really was. I had put so much time into World of Warcraft. I had heard good things about Final Fantasy 14, and I thought, should I? Shouldn't I? What other MMOs are out there? Do I even want to mess with it? I was back to just playing games on PlayStation, and I was content with that. Playing games on my phone, I was perfectly content with that. I kept hearing about this Final Fantasy 14 and why I should try it. So I buckled and I did try it. And like I said, I was reluctant because after so many years of one MMO, can I commit to something else? Am I ready for this change? It seems like it's a big thing. Again, this is a video game, but it's almost a big life change when you've committed so much of your life to something else. But I'm glad that I did try it because I have found it different enough to be quite refreshing. I have found the people that I have encountered in game to be quite refreshing. Early on in the early days of World of Warcraft, I felt like everyone loved everyone. You'd be out questing people there were helpful people. You'd be in dungeons in those early Wailing Caverns days, and everyone was helpful and talking you through it, and people would just randomly trade with you and give you something because you needed it. And along the way, that turned into a lot of really grumpy, angry, selfish people in game, and it just the vibe changed. So right away, one of the things that I have really taken away from Final Fantasy 14 is that there have been I felt that resurgence of kindness in people again, which has been nice to see again. As far as the game goes, yes, I got in there, different character, different world, different story. I didn't get that same, a Tauren shaman running through Mulgore for the first time goosebumps. It was I enjoyed experiencing something very different. Just the game art is so different. The world, the environmental art, the character art is so different. And the story is different. And, you get to jump into a new world for the first time. And that's a good feeling, jumping into a new world for the first time when you're someone who enjoys the world building and the character development and all of those types of things. So from that aspect, it's been a lot of fun just being able to try something new and new mechanics and new spells and new classes and races and all of those things. And so for a while I was going pretty hard leveling the main story quest line. So but yeah, I've been busy lately and haven't played quite as much. But yeah, it's fun doing something new, and just and not caring so much and not being like I have to get in there. I have to do X and Y because I have to raid. I have to get this gear level up. I have to do all of these things. I have to cross off my checklist. You can just get in and have fun. And it's flexible that way. So it's really nice to do things like that.
Yeah, the journey is something I think that is lost on Warcraft, right? The journey to the end game. To me, Warcraft has become almost 100% about the end game. And that I think is one of the unfortunate parts, because one of the things that I've seen that I've fallen in love with FF about is there are people at various different, yes, you have to do the MSQ to get to the end game. That's just part of it. But all the raids up until that point, so once you get through ARR, if you want to do those raids, then you can do those raids then, kind of as they were back then. And I can just scale down and help you out with those raids or help you out with those dungeons. And you know, it's fun for me because I don't have that pressure either at the high end to go and say like, well, I got to do all this stuff and I can't help you. I'm incentivized, I think, to play with my friends rather than saying like, well, get your butt through the MSQ and get to the end game so that I can play with you. I can play with you whenever I want. I can jump into a dungeon with you. I can help you out with anything at any point in time. And that's a really refreshing thing too, because it just allows people to kind of do what they want together, you know?
Definitely. And the thing is, the game gives you flexibility to do what you want, but it also, you know, it does force you to play the story, which I actually like. You know, I came in with the World of Warcraft mindset of, all right, how fast can I level through this expansion, and this expansion? And yes, you know, you can feel that leveling moves faster probably than it did when it came out. But you still have to go through the process. You still have to experience it. You can't skip the heart of the storyline, and I really appreciate that. But along the way, there's so much flexibility to play any class you want, to pick up different jobs, and you know, it just allows you so much more freedom. If you want to be the end gamer, you can do that. But for those of us who aren't there anymore, and that's not our goal, it's there. The flexibility, the story, it makes it so worthwhile to play this game, you know.
Yeah. So when you first, you know, arrived, I don't know which, you're a conjurer, so you started off in Limsa, right?
Yeah, I did.
Did you show up in Limsa in like a cart? I don't know what the Limsa starting experience, because I started off in Ul'dah.
Yeah, no, you arrive and the guy brings you on the cart and brings you into town, and you're like, okay, here you go.
And they're like, here, talk to these people and get an adventure quest or something to do.
Right.
Yeah, I remember going.
You know, it's your basic MMO starting experience, you know,
with a lot more text.
Yes.
And that was, I think, the biggest thing for me when I first started and first actually tried FF14. I want to say it was closer to the ARR days, and then I was just like, oh, this isn't for me. I'm not playing this. Was just how long it took to get to like the first, like, where's my 12 boars to kill? Where's my 10? I'm like, why do you keep talking? Just give me something to kill. That was my brain, and that was my mindset. And I think for people that are switching over, it's a very difficult thing, I think, to transition to that. Okay, there's a lot of text in this game. There's a story that matters. The story isn't just the end point, where I think in Warcraft, the story is the cinematics, which play after you end a boss, or, you know, at the end of an expansion or at the start of an expansion. That's where you get the story. And here it's very different. It's much more like a book instead of like a highlight reel of mini clips. It's just, it's a flowing narrative all the way through from beginning to end. And that's something that's very different and refreshing for me. I don't know if you felt that same way.
Yeah, it was definitely a big change. You know, when you've played World of Warcraft for so long, you get into that habit of, you run up to your quest giver, you accept your quest. I would skim the quest text at any given point, run to the spot on my map and just start killing stuff, and then run back. And it was just a speed run. And here I had to slow down, had to read. You know, okay, put your reading cap on, turn off the ADD brain, and actually read. And experience it. And I had to force myself to do that at first, because I was so used to just, like you said, why aren't I just killing things right now? Why aren't you just saying, go kill 10 boars and then come back, and then I'm gonna have you go kill 10 stronger boars and then you come back, and then I'm gonna have you go kill the boss boar and come back, and we'll just keep repeating the cycle. And no, there's actual words to read. And at first it felt slow. Once I stopped resisting and I accepted it, and I was all in, but you have to make that conscious choice to accept the story and be willing to immerse yourself in it.
What was the moment for you where you went and said, hey, this story's pretty good. I need to stop. Like, what was the moment where you stopped fighting it, or the moment that was like, okay, reading the story is worth it? Do you recall what moment that was for you?
I think that I had to do that pretty early on, or else I knew I wasn't going to get it. Even though at the beginning, you've got a little bit about the Empire, but it's like villagers have gone missing, and we got to figure out what's going on with the missing villagers, which in the grand scheme of where we're going in the story, not the most important thing. But I had to just force myself to say, there's something interesting that's going to happen here. They're working me into it, and I'm going to open up to a bigger universe. So just get in right now and just let yourself experience it. Otherwise, I'm going to get to the end of the expansion and be like, who is that dude? What's going on? What's happening here? And I'm not going to know. I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to understand it. So I pretty early on, I had to just tell myself, trust the process, and let's do this.
Just trust in the process. Yeah, that's that's something I tell everybody that starts off. I'm like, just give it like 50 hours. Like that's an easy request for people. Just give it 50 hours and it'll be worth it. Trust me. And that's a tough pill, I think, for a lot of people to swallow, because they're like, what do you mean 50 hours? I need to be at the end game in 10, or I need to be at the end game in 6. And it's like, no, just follow the story, trust the process. You'll get there. So when you think about, let's shift off a story, because I'd like to circle back to story at the end of the podcast, so we can kind of talk a little more spoilers and everything about, crazy moments that you loved and everything in the story. But mechanically, what do you think of Final Fantasy XIV? Do you think does anything better than WoW? Do you think that there are things that it doesn't do as well? Like, what are the things that you like about Final Fantasy as far as mechanics and game design, and what are the things that you don't?
I think for the most part, one of the things I noticed as far as combat goes, it feels really similar to me. It's one of those things where I felt like you can get, if you're familiar with MMOs, you can get in, you can hit your hotkeys, you can cast spells, you can fight, and you can do those things and kind of get it. You know who's going to be the quest giver. Your right click, your left click, and kind of what they're going to do. So mechanically, I think it's similar enough to other games where you can jump in and not feel lost. You can not feel totally confused. I did feel like the UI was clunkier at first. I felt like things didn't feel as smooth. I wanted to, I felt like I had to make extra clicks that I didn't have to make in World of Warcraft. I think from a UI perspective, I felt like things felt clunkier to me, and felt like I had to take more. I couldn't streamline things as fast as I did before, and I had to get used to that. The one thing that comes to mind that you have to do? Oh, like when you have to use something in a quest, it's like you have to choose use from a drop down menu, and that just felt cumbersome. So it's little things like that. For me, were just something I had to tell myself, just get over it. There are people I know that will get into a game like this and be like, oh, it was so much better when I played WoW and I could do this. But I guess I'm at the age now where just say get over it. I just tell myself get over it and just accept this for what it is, and learn its mechanics and learn its idiosyncrasies. There's no sense complaining about things you can't change. So yes, there are things that felt awkward and felt different, but there were enough things that felt familiar that I think it makes it easy to get in and just play.
Mm-hmm. Did the combat feel slow for you when you first switched over, or has it been so long since you played WoW where you didn't really notice it much?
I probably didn't notice it that much. It being slower. Um, I don't think I really noticed much of a difference there. I felt like it was taking me a long time to kill stuff, and I wanted to be OP right out of the gate, and I wasn't. But other than that, I didn't. Yeah, maybe I was a year too long removed to really feel the difference that way.
Yeah, so I mean that's one change I will say, that there's not the round up 12 things and kill them all at once. You can't really do that unless you dramatically out level something if you're going back to farm mold content. But even at the
Yeah.
upper ends, like I felt like with Warcraft with power scaling, once you get to the end of an expansion, especially, all those mobs in the world they just die in 2 seconds. And you barely have to
Right.
push any buttons. You just smash some
I
buttons
mean,
and
I
things
get
die. Whereas that's
right.
never
Yeah,
the
I mean,
case here, from what I can tell.
no, you're right. You're right. Yeah, I mean, from that perspective, as far as fast or slow, it's definitely slower. Like you can't take on too many mobs at once. I found myself running around just killing one thing at a time, just
Yeah.
to be safe.
Yeah.
Whereas like in World of Warcraft, playing my paladin, mount up, you run through everything in the area, and you just burn them all down and leave a pile of bodies in your wake, basically. And then you move on, and you can't do that. And I appreciate the fact that you can't do that, because there's something that feels amazing in the first few times you do that, but then it just becomes, well, we might as well just give you the quest rewards and the loot if you can kill stuff that fast. You're not really playing the game at that point when it's that easy to kill things.
Yeah. Well, you're not feeling the rotation, and then when you go into do a dungeon, then you're out of practice, I want to say, a little bit too. Like, you might know how to do it, but there's a dramatic difference between those two things. I think the mindset is just, the enemies are tougher, so take the time to fight the enemy. Don't just plow through it. Yeah, they'll get easier and easier. I mean, sure, at the end of an expansion it's easier to kill, but you still have to go through at least the beginning parts of a rotation usually to feel like you're killing something. And I kind of once I got used to that, I kind of liked it. It feels less what's the best way to describe it? Like junk content, right? Like that fighting that enemy is not just something I kill a million times over and over again just because I want to round things up and slaughter things. There's a very different mindset there in terms of how those things are approached. So what about
Right, things stay dangerous as they should.
yeah. What about the one character model? That to me is one of those ones for me that makes a world of difference. I don't know if you felt that much just yet. So you're through Stormblood right now, or you're in like the post Stormblood patches?
Yeah, I'm middle of Stormblood.
Okay. So how have you felt the one character systems worked out for you? Is that made a difference? Do you like it? Do you not like it as much? How do you feel about it?
Have some mixed feelings about it. For the most part, I actually really like it a lot. Having been kind of like you, playing a lot of alts. Sorry, I'm coughing. Playing a lot of alts in WoW, because you want to play it, you want to experience everything. I wanted to experience every class in WoW, and I had a ton of alts, and that was fun. I like the fact that you don't have to do that, though. There's something really, really cool about you can make this character whoever you want them to be. Right now, you want to just tank, and you want to be warrior, and you want to just all out that way. Fine. Then tomorrow you're like, you know what? Let me just swap all my gear. I'm gonna heal. I'm gonna be a caster, whatever the case may be. You can do that, and I love that flexibility. You're like, you know what? I want to just be a gatherer, and I'm going to put on my gathering gear, and I'm going to run around, and I'm going to pick flowers all day, and that's who I am today. And it adds a nice role playing element to your character, just building up that who your character is and what they're doing in your head. You can really devote more time to one character and your personal story for your one character, than just making new characters out of necessity to play a different class. And that's really all it was. Now, I will say the one area where it's a bit of a bummer for me is that sometimes I like playing a different race. And so then that makes it really hard, right? You have to commit to, your character's race, your character's gender, what they look like, and you can change them and all, but it's a full commitment where you're changing them completely, and you have to say, okay, now I want to be someone totally different going forward, and put my creative juices into who is this character now.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that I think is the downside, is if you want your character to look, act, be a different person essentially, that's a little bit more difficult than just, today I'm going to play my Tauren, tomorrow I'm going to play my Blood Elf, or just log in and log out and be somebody different.
Yeah.
But I think the flexibility of the one character, and really being able to embrace who that one character is something a little bit more special, I think, for people who want to embody their character, kind of like you would in like a D&D type setting where you're really role playing them.
Mm-hmm. Well, or you become a glamour addict and you just keep changing constantly. Now that costs
Right,
money, but I mean, they do give you one glamour, I think, which is nice. Once you get through the ARR story, they give you a glamour just in case you didn't like your original choice. And so that gives you some flexibility there in terms of just seeing the world and feeling it out. And maybe you feel a little bit different at that point, but, like that's, yeah, you're right. That's one drawback, and it took me a while to really fully go full potato and just realize that I love being a Lalafell and I don't want to be anything else. It took me a little while to get there, but once I got there, I was like, yeah, I'm not ever using a glamour. As a matter of fact, I've got a glamour potion on me right now that I'm upset that I can't just give to somebody else because I'm not going to use it. I'm just not going to use it. My character is a potato. And the things I think that it enables, you to do that makes it really nice are things like no gear goes wasted. So if you get a piece of gear in a dungeon that's not for your current class, maybe it's for an alt job, and that's not something that's soul bound to your character to where you can't trade it. It's just another piece of gear that you have that you just save for later for another job or another glamour or something, which feels really great because then it feels like nothing goes wasted. And then from a narrative perspective, I think that this is where it makes the biggest difference, is because you are that one character, you don't have to repeat the narrative 12 times if you have 12 alts in Warcraft. You just repeat it the once. And yeah, there's New Game Plus now, which is cool and everything, but you don't have to do a lot of repetitive content. Because I think if the game made me play through the entire storyline 12 times, I think I would dislike the story. I would start to be agitated by the story as compared to really immersing myself in it, saying, all right, this is the one time I'm going through this. I'm going to treat it with reverence, And right. If I had to keep doing that over and over again, I think I would have a lesser and lesser opinion constantly of the story, because it would go from something that I think is the best story in all of games personally now, to something that's like, what's the best story in all of games? But my God, I don't want to do it for the 12th time.
Right.
And it's like The Last of Us. I love the story of The Last of Us. I've played through it twice. I don't really want to go through the story again, honestly. Like the gameplay, don't want to go through the story again, because I'm like, I've seen this, I've been through it. I don't need to play it again. But those are the two things I think that really make a difference for me. And then, like you said, like just being an altaholic, like just being able to do everything on one character just feels really nice too. But I think that those two things really free up a lot of not just gameplay but narrative decisions too, which makes you have, I think, more agency as the warrior of light.
Yeah, definitely.
So any other thoughts, before we jump into like story spoilers or anything like that, in terms of like differences and things that you've liked and things that you've not liked about the Final Fantasy experience so far?
No, it's just, I think it's been just different enough to be something that felt unique, felt fresh, and has been a lot of fun. So I'm glad you got me in it. I really am. I'm looking forward to continuing on this journey, and getting caught up through the MSQ, getting now into Endwalker, hopefully sooner than later. and see where it goes.
Well, it's probably good that you haven't been able to play lately, because I haven't even been able to log in very much because of all the endwalker queues and everything that's going on there, and the mayhem that's occurred around some
Yeah.
of that. So it's probably good that you take a couple weeks off and then come back once the queues kind of come
Right.
back to normal and everything. So, all right, at this point in the podcast, if you're listening on audio, I'm going to put a spoiler tag at the bottom here and at the top on YouTube, just to let you know that we're going to talk story spoilers, I think, through the middle of Stormblood, where Jay is, and then we'll wrap up a little bit after that. So this is your spoiler warning through Stormblood. If you're through there, keep listening. If you haven't and you want to avoid spoilers, thanks for listening, and hope you come back soon. So, all right. So let's talk story spoilers. Moments that, what was the first moment that like blew your mind in the game?
Ooh, man. I'm trying to. I remember playing through. Okay, so playing through, was it through A Realm Reborn? It's not really until the end of that when things take off. I feel like that's when the story kicks in. It's almost like you're watching the pilot episode of a TV show, and you have all this build up until the end of the pilot when you go, oh, now we've launched. So I think that's where it was for me at the end of ARR. That's when it kind of went Game of Thrones, right? That's when things started to really get interesting, where you felt stakes and you felt no one was safe and arms were going to be chopped off and things like that.
Oh, so you're talking the end of ARR. So it actually wasn't even like it wasn't the invasion of Garlemald and fighting Ultima Weapon and all of that. It was the finale of ARR.
Yes, because that stuff, the invasion was cool. All right, that was good. But again, that to me was still like similar enough to things in like World of Warcraft, again, for example, where you're gonna invade the bad guys, you're gonna fight the bad guys, and you're gonna kill the boss, and that's going to happen. That's just always happens. So that was cool. I liked it. It wasn't until you started to have those story twists, and then I started to say, okay, they're not afraid to shake things up. We're gonna be in for a wilder ride than I expected. It's not gonna be the straightforward, here are your bad guys, you're going to kill your bad guys. What is the, oh man, the one character's name, I forget her name, that you fight, where you see her the whole time through the beginning, and then you fight her at the end, and you're like, oh, that was sweet. Yeah, it wasn't until the end, I think, for me, where then it was something different and was something bigger than I expected.
Are you talking about Livia, the white,
yes,
the white Power Ranger, Garlemald soldier?
Yes.
Yeah, so she was very evil, and obviously she gets her comeuppance at the end there. She kicked the sylph, right? She kicked the sylph and killed it. So yeah, she was obviously a kind of mustache twirling Warcraft style villain, I think. But yeah, the Game of Thrones, for lack of a better term, like ending of ARR is a special one for sure. And I think I kept sending you the gif of Kevin Hart saying it's about to go down every time you were getting close to that moment.
Right.
So yeah, that's an incredible moment for sure. That was one of those things where I was just like, what the heck is going on? What, like, you're taking out everybody pretty much. And it's like, I'm left here alone with this kid that I hate, and Tataru, who's our seamstress slash manager, basically, of everything that we do at the Scions, like our business manager. Like that's who you left us with? What's going on? And yeah, so I mean that was certainly an incredible moment. What were some of the other ones? So I guess let's move on to like Heavensward. What are some of the ones that you really liked so far, or throughout Heavensward?
Yeah, I mean, well, as things went along, I think part of it was the fact that the story was, has been willing to, kill characters off, has been willing to shake things up. It's like you have this whole, you join the Scions, you're doing all this, everything's hunky dory, and then it's just gonna fall apart on you. And so, I like that it's been a continuous story where, kind of like a really good TV series where you get to a point and you're like, oh, we've got a cliffhanger, and then we get to, okay, we've built up this group, we build up the Crystal Braves. Why did we even form the Crystal Braves? Just to have it blow up in our face,
because Alfie No wanted to play general. He wanted to make an army.
I know, really had to. That didn't work. So yeah, I mean, and gosh, I'm drawing a blank now on what is her name? The leader of the Scions.
Minfilia.
Minfilia. Oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Yeah. The fact that we kind of, she goes off to become this light deity. I'm not sure exactly even what she is.
The speaker of the crystal, the speaker of Hydaelyn.
Yeah, exactly. She's basically in the crystal now. So she's this character that you do so many quests with, and you're like, I will follow you to the ends of Eorzea. Whatever we're doing it together. And then, she's gone. So all these little moments, and then you have the, what did you call the dude with the with the Vincent Price mustache guy?
Count Dripula. I stole that one from Asmund, so that's not mine. But
okay,
Count Dripula, yeah. Lord Horsefant.
Right. You get through that storyline, you get to know these characters, and then bam, people are getting killed out there, and there's just something that's been where I think this is a testament to what we talked about with the storytelling, is that you start to feel connected to these characters, right? I mean, I was in game when the voice actor passed, and there was a vigil going on outside, and that was such a great community building experience around this character and around the person who did the voice acting. So yeah, it's just I think all of the little nuances of the story that continue to snowball as we go on, and it just keeps building upon itself. Nothing feels like it's out of place, and that's what I appreciate, that everything has been building and building and building from where we started. And so every time something happens, you're like, oh, but I love that guy, now he's dead, or oh, now we're gonna fight this dude, or it stays exciting that way for me.
And I realized I messed it up. It's Count Forton, not Horsefant. That's his son. So,
oh yes, Horsefant the son.
Sorry for those that were like, oh, Lord Horsefant. Who the hell are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, my bad. So did the Horsefant vault moment like destroy you? It seems to be one of those ones that wrecks a lot of people when they see it for the first time, when he saves you from freaking Zeus there at the top of the vault. Did that emotionally destroy you? Did you have a strong emotional reaction to that?
I mean, I don't know that I had a strong emotional reaction, but because maybe I'm just I just have a cold frozen heart. But I did feel something, and I was like, oh man, because again, because the story is unfolding a certain way, and because you're reading that text, and because you're hearing those voiceovers, yeah, you're in it, and you're just like, oh, can't believe this is happening. So yeah, totally. I mean, just like with everything else, it's just done in such a good way that you can't help but feel something.
Jay's gone full Estinian at this point. He's just jaded, old war veteran, can't get emotional about anything.
Right.
So I had a theory that since you love like blood elves and everything from World of Warcraft, and you love that lore and that universe and everything, that Heavensward would be like one of your favorite expansions. And I swear that I thought Estinian would be your favorite character in Final Fantasy 14. Is Estinian your favorite character, or is there someone else that you
prefer or gravitate to or would consider your favorite character?
I don't think he is my favorite character. I liked him. I want to see what happens with him as we go forward. I'm pretty sure he's going to make a comeback from where I've been. He took off into the wilderness, but I think he's coming back. Let me see. Who is my favorite character? That's such a great question. I don't know. I don't know if I know.
Give me a couple. Give me a couple that come to mind that are ones that you think of.
Tough call. Let's see. I mean, why am I drawing a blank on this? Let's see here. Let me think.
Just describe them to me, and I'll give you the names, or I'll mess it up like I did with Lord Horshaphant.
Let me see. I'm trying to refresh my memory right now. You know who I actually was really into? Was what was her name? Isael?
Yeah,
Isael.
Lady Iceheart.
Yes, Lady Iceheart. Because she was one of those characters that you think she's your enemy, then, you find out that, she's not really what you thought she was. She's not quite the evil person you thought she was. And then you start to really like her until then she's gone. But you actually warm up to the Iceheart lady, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a really interesting, storytelling, because it's one of those things where like they always say, even for the villains think they're the hero, right? And so we thought she was bad, but she had her own motivations. And I always kind of appreciated that about her. That, we thought she was this bad person, but, she wasn't. She had her own reasons. And once you learn who she is, you actually, at least I did, I really came to like the character. And I wanted her to be around longer.
Yeah. And that's right when they pull them away from you, is right when you're like, oh, I really like this person. They're like, say goodbye to all your dreams, because they're going down the tube right now. And
exactly.
But I mean, it's a beautiful ending for Isael, and in terms of like her kind of delivering on her promise, in terms of she may not have got what she wanted in the end, but she lived out her life in service of the mission that she wanted, which was to bring dragonkind and mankind back together. And that was something I think that was a really nice send off for her. And then of course, the moment that gets me to cry quite a bit is just the end of the Dragon Song War, with the last final battle with Nidhogg / Estinian, and you're there ripping out the eyes out of Estinian, and he's telling you just to kill him. And just that, when Dragon Song, the song plays over that, when you go through the process, and Alfie's like, I'm not going to let you die. And I think that was one of those moments where I was like, okay, I don't hate this kid anymore. He's like, I'm not going to let you die. I can't lose someone else. And then, you both managed to do it with the help of Ghost. I don't know how this happens, but Ghost Isael and Ghost Horshaphant. And it just kind of brings the whole story together. It kind of brings the whole journey of Heavensward together in this nice crescendo moment. And it's a beautiful ending, I think, for both of those characters, and a beautiful moment of growth for many others. Amaric, Alfie, you as the Warrior of Light. So it's just a nice way to kind of culminate everything in that expansion.
Yeah, and Alfie is one of those characters that at first I was like, do I like him? Is he annoying? Is he someone I want to follow? Is he someone I want to be a leader? I've had a up and down sort of mixed feelings with him throughout, but I'll tell you what, where we're at kind of now, I really like his sister a lot.
She's got more attitude.
She doesn't seem to quite. He almost seems to second guess himself. You kind of want him to just like, come on, man, step up a little bit here. Where she's a little more willing to do that, and so I think it makes her a character you kind of want to follow a little bit more. But yeah, she's been fun. right now. Some of the quests I had been doing when I was playing, spending a lot of time with her. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, the twins are great. As I made a post a couple days ago about, we're the three best friends that anyone could have. The Hangover song is what I think of when I think of my character, the Warrior of Light, and Alfie and Alize. Is just inseparable best friends at this point in time, and that's a big difference in terms of journey from going from kind of like spoiled brats to now having that level of attachment to those characters is really quite nice. So other characters that pop out to you. So you said Isael, not the biggest Justinian fan, but any other ones that pop out to you? Throughout the entire, not just Heavensward, but everything that you've done so far.
Let's see here. Let's see. Who could it be? Who jumps out to me? I'm trying to jog my memory. I don't know. I think I don't know that anybody else really has really affected me that much. There have been characters where I've enjoyed their transitions and their change, and that's something that has been interesting. Where with oh goodness, what is? Let me see here. Who's the dude? Oh god, anybody who listens to this, that I apologize to all the big Final Fantasy 14 fans that I am not quite there yet. I apologize to all of you. You've got the dude who builds the ships, that constructs the ships that you fly on. Yeah, Sid. Okay, see, my memory is shot. I'm old, people. I'm old.
Have you played any other Final Fantasy games, by the way? I don't think I asked you that question.
Just briefly. I played Final Fantasy X a little bit, but not much.
Sid in pretty much almost every Final Fantasy game is the shipbuilder. They name the character Sid. So that's an easy one for most Final Fantasy fans.
There you go.
So yeah, so Sid and Nero in their bromance.
Yeah. Right. But like with Sid, just again, you've got this guy when you first meet him, he doesn't know who he is anymore. He's just hanging out, at the church. Being a little helper dude, and then how he has grown. The character growth that they do, I really enjoy with someone like him. And then on the opposite side, with guys like Nero, when you see people who kind of lost something and kind of fell from their power, has been really interesting to see. So I just think I think they've done such a good job just giving some of those characters enough change that they're just fun to follow and fun to see what happens with them. I love Y'shtola. That's my girl right there. She's just fun to hang out with.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that love Y'shtola, for sure. Even Yoshi P said that if he were to go out to lunch with one of the Scions, the first person that came to his mind was Y'shtola to have a conversation about the ether and everything else. I'm not. I mean, I like Y'shtola. I'm not as big on Y'shtola as so many other people are. I like a lot of the other characters. I mean, I love Alfie, I love Alize, I love Thancred. I like pretty much many of the Scions. Urianger becomes a favorite of mine. Kryl is one of my favorites. Yeah, I think she's woefully underused in some points. But there's others that really stick out to me, like Yotsuyu really sticks out to me quite a bit as a character that has a very strong, impression. I don't know are you there yet with Yotsuyu?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, well, I will refrain from talking about her, but she will leave quite an impression on you by the time that she's in the story and everything else. But the thing I think you hit on there with character growth is, going back to just thinking about Warcraft and their villains and everything. I think the reason that so many people loved and Sylvanas and Arthas and Illidan, those quote unquote villains, pseudo villains, right? I think Arthas is a villain, but he started off as a tragic character. He started off as a character who
was trying to do the best for his people and got himself lost in the middle of that, and then did horrific evil things. And Illidan was always that way. He's like, I got to do something, and my people be damned. I'm gonna do and make the best choices that I can make that I think are the right ones to do. You know, consequences be damned. And Sylvanas obviously has a very complicated history and everything with her character, but you kind of understand their motivations, and they're not just big bad, you know, I guess is the best way to describe them. And that's one of those differences I think that always sticks out to me with Final Fantasy 14, is that almost not everyone, because you got to have some just pure evil characters in there and stuff. But I mean, you mentioned Livia, I'm pretty sure it's Livia. She's a pretty mustache twirling villain, but even in her end, even in her death, you realize she was doing it all for love, pretty much. And that's kind of tragic. And there's even layers to Gaius where, you know, after Ultima gets unleashed and he's like, everyone memes on it now, but you know, such devastation. This was not my intention. Everyone memes on that moment. But you can see that there's not a purely evil person underlying all of that. That he's a maybe misguided person, maybe someone who's doing the wrong things, but he has reasons for them. And, you know, pretty much most every villain throughout all of Final Fantasy XIV, there is a humanity, a complexity, a motivation for why those villains do what they do. And in Warcraft, Deathwing is big evil dragon, and you know, he's probably got motivations, but I can't even honestly remember what they really are, other than the old gods are whispering to him or something like that. But I mean, he's just a big scary fire dragon, you know, who turns into a tentacle monster for some reason. You know, I know the reason, but for some reason at the end of that expansion. And Arthas, you know, was, I want to say, one of the last great villains of Warcraft, because and Garrosh, I think, is another good one too. He was a character that you kind of saw the progression that he went through and had complexity to them. So that's a character that originated from World of Warcraft, and I think has some complexity to him as well. Bad person, but you understand the motivations. But I think, you know, what's happened for the last, you know, good bit in Warcraft is we just kind of get, okay, well, here's N'Zoth, he's just evil. Here's the jailer, he's just evil. Here's this old god, you know, Gahoon at the end of this thing. It's just evil. You kill it.
Right.
And then you're done with it. And then on to the next threat. It feels like, sorry for those who aren't football fans, it feels like Bill Belichick is like, we're on to Cincinnati. We're on the next one. And you're just kind of like, you do that so many times, like you were talking about at the very beginning of the show, there's a loop. You do that so many times, and it's just like, well, if there's no substance to this villain, why do I care anymore? Other than it's big, cool villain. Whereas by the time you get to some of the fights in Final Fantasy, it's like you're fighting Nidhogg. It means a lot. It means a lot. There's stakes for the characters. You understand the motivations. You understand what's going on. There's a reason for it. You fight the Archbishop, and you're like, okay, I understand why I'm doing this, and I understand why it's a big freaking deal, and it's why it's a big emotional moment. And you know, they come back to those moments too. You know, I think about the moment with Amaric when he has the conversation with Race Velgar, the I don't want to say good dragon, but you know, the white dragon there, who gave his eye to his brother Nidhogg just in grief. You know, and Amaric says, you know, I made the choice to kill my father, not because I wanted to, it destroyed me, but because it was the right thing to do. And I didn't want to see any more bloodshed. And he kind of just calls out this ancient dragon about like being stuck in his grief because he doesn't want to kill his brother, which is completely understandable. But he knows that if he doesn't help us, then you know, just more bloodshed and more pain is going to be created. And they use those moments so well over time to where it's not just on to the next big threat. And that I think is
Exactly.
the main difference between Final Fantasy and how they treat their villains and Warcraft and how they treat their villains. So, all right.
Well said.
Well, I think we're at time here. Actually, a little bit over time. So, Jae Shadeaux, I appreciate you being here. It was a blast again to be able to do another podcast with you for the first time in, gosh, a very, very long time. And I hope that your journey continues to go well in Final Fantasy, and hopefully sometime soon you'll be able to come in and check in, and maybe we can talk all about Shadowbringers and Endwalker at that point.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, I don't think you have any social channels or anything like that you want to plug, do you?
I do not. I'm off the grid now practically these days.
All righty. Well, I hope that you have a great experience in Eorzea once you're finally able to get through that Endwalker login queue boss. And for everybody listening at home, thanks again for tuning in to this episode of the Popoto Pub. We really appreciate you being here, and I hope that everyone takes care and peace out.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Popoto Pub. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more episodes. Take care, everyone, and peace out.